Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of the NW History Podcast. Today we have RussianFury on the podcast, and we're going to be talking about his history as a player, what he's done, and also his unique melee style is something we're going to be covering because it's something that's well known in the NA community. And if you're listening from an EU perspective, RussianFury is right now currently in the NR4. He's led many different regiments as second in command and I think first in command. Would that be right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so we're going to have him on today. So Russian, I just want you to start off with how you were exposed to NW. Like, how did you even find this game?
I was just browsing, of course, on YouTube when I was like 11, and I found, of course, the Lord and Savior of NW, Duplex Heated, basically, who basically exposed everyone to the game prior to 2012. I didn't even know Mountain Blade existed before then, and I bought it and tried to join his regiment, and I got declined, so...
Ooh, why'd you get declined, you think?
Probably because I was new, and I just recently bought the game, and they didn't really want that, in a sense. Maybe they did. I don't know. I remember applying for multiple regiments, and I've been declined. But, yeah, look at me now.
Yeah, it changed a little bit.
Yeah.
So, who did end up accepting you first?
The 38E Swiss.
Who the hell are they?
It was a pub regiment during 2012, led by, at the time when I joined, Eric and GTA Manic. And Big Bear 805, I do believe.
Big Bear 805, I love that name.
Yeah. And it was basically a pub regiment. It had arty, cav, skirms. It had all of the above, basically. They even had a sapper detachment, which made me chuckle. They were fun to play with.
Now, how'd that affect you in terms of... Was that something you were... How'd you get into 1v1s, I guess? What made you a competitive player?
When I came back, basically... 2 years later, basically, and you know, I started out in 2012, but I took a break really in 2013 when the competitive scene really started to take off, and then I came back in 2014 and joined the infamous OD regiment, or at that time was called the NR92, and then I started trying to get back into my former form because at the time of 2012, or my career during that time, basically, I had 1,700 hours.
Wow!
I accumulated 1,700 hours in 1 year, so I had no life at that period of time. No
Sounds
life.
Like a lot of NW players.
And then I came back and started trying to get back in the form and do what I can do and win.
So you were with Odie, and I want to focus on that for you because you're more of a competitive player. How was he and what, because I know he's a well-known NW leader and he has definitely a lot of opinions about him. So could you talk about being under him and what it was like being in that regiment?
Odie, from the outside perspective, was seen like a devil because, you know, he really did not care how people viewed him, how perceived him, and how, you know, when he came into the NAWL, you know, he didn't care about how people viewed him. He would hill camp, he would basically do all the quote unquote scummy tactics that I would call scummy. Yeah. But when you're actually in the regiment, he would actually sometimes be pretty fun to play with, in my opinion. You know, I played a numerous amount of games with him. I beat him a lot, especially in Napoleon Total War.
Oh, yeah.
And he was actually a fun guy to hang around with. But when he got mad in events, which was pretty commonplace, you know, he wasn't always the most joyful cookie.
Ah, yes.
But in all honesty, Odie actually did set up the groundworks of what I would take and use in line battles when I started leading regiments.
Yeah, how was your ranking up? How were you in terms of like starting from the bottom and working yourself up?
I mean, to be honest, I think I got a little bit of biasm because I was good at the game,
Mm-hmm.
and I had the name Russian Fury, and Odie was a
Uh-huh.
Russian, an actual Russian Jew from
Uh-huh.
Moscow. And so, I just, over the time, I stayed in his regiment, and for 5 months, I basically got sergeant, and then at that point, I got third in command. Only, and second command was Ulam. Really smart dude. He was really a great guy. He was a big Civil War fanatic.
Uh-huh.
He was a reenactor. He went to Gettysburg events and all that jazz, and it was really
Sounds like a fun time. I've always wanted to do that. I know it's a nerd thing to do, but man,
not really. It's fun. I
before I
haven't done it.
die.
Or you die because someone forgot to pull out the ramrod
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it flies across the field.
Oh my gosh, that's the way to die. Now, being during that, how was it as someone trying to be a leader? Like, what was your goal per se being in there? Like, what attracted you to be an NCO rather than just a normal foot soldier?
I felt as though I could actually make a difference in the sense of that most people would, because I was actually at the beginning of Odie's leadership, his basically go-to guy at reverse columns.
Uh-huh.
Basically started reversing because I was there and he trusted me, and so it started to grow. And then he did replace me with Ulam, which he wasn't bad at it as well, but I thought I was better because I'm always thinking I'm better. But
Just to ask you a quick question here, what did you find leading natural to you, or was it something that came hard?
leading became more natural to me in during the days of the LG.
Uh-huh.
But at first, when I was in the 71st, it was pretty difficult trying to get into the grind of knowing how to face different leaders and not give up your honor in the sense of trying to win a match. I think Cheesy Pants really did taught me that, if anything.
Now, what do you mean by honor per se?
Honor in the sense of that you don't do scummy things like intentionally shoot the enemy officer, run away. In my opinion, these type of tactics where you just run away the entire time, you would sit on the top of a hill and shoot across the entire map and hill camp for like 10 minutes. Use illegal players.
Oh,
I was a big
yeah.
I hated that. I hated double regging. I hated triple regging. All that sorts of stuff. I
Do you
would not.
still hate that?
I still do.
Yeah,
Do
I
not
thought
like
so.
it.
I think it's something
I've
though.
Yeah, I've
Go for
became
it.
more lenient towards it now. But when I see it, I still don't like it.
Still get that like feeling that you're just like, ah.
Yeah, it makes me cringe inside.
Yeah, I think that's something that loyalty to regiments has definitely been undervalued, and I think one of the things about leading a regiment, and I can say as someone who led like double ranking and stuff, because I was desperate when I was leading the AF. I don't want to focus too much on myself, but when I was leading the AF, it was mainly me trying to get good people to join, and I'm just like, no one knew I could find was like good. I mean, very few people. I found some, but very few, so I would just let people double rank. But I mean, once you find with that, it's not only looked down upon, but also like when it comes to like a competitive event, people will leave and show where their loyalty lies,
Yeah.
So the 71st, do you feel like, what was the most important regiment that you've been in?
Well,
As formation as your player, or like leadership, or the different aspects of that?
Well, in terms of evolving to what I am now, probably the 71st.
And why would you say that?
Pants was, in all honesty, probably one of the better to best leaders in NW that I've seen. He did not hill camp at all. He went at the enemy. He found different ways to counter them. He was a respectable dude, and no one can say anything against that. I think everyone did enjoy him, especially when it came to line battles, super high all the time. And the melee in there was phenomenal in the sense of that, of course, there were ex-12th members. But by the time I did join the 71st, most of those guys, including Jackie and Zeth, left that regiment. So the burden did fall to me. And,
What time was this? What was the time?
This was in about late 2014.
So that's when I just started the game. Like, legitimately, that's when I started the game. April 10th, 2014 was when I started. So that's when the 71st... No, so you didn't join at its peak, right? The peak of the 71st? When were you mainly run? What group of guys were with you?
I had Achilles, Skinny, of course, Cheesy, Blade, Theoden.
What were those different players like? What were some of the aspects of, like, even their melee, or can you go anything on them?
Achilles was a blocking monster, basically.
So, like me on steroids?
But he could kill people. Like, he could do what I could do. And block meant a lot of people. Skinny was a chamber whore. He was just an all-around just chamber whore who just killed everybody. Blade, he was, to be honest, just an aggressive player who, he didn't really have a style. I remember seeing Blade
clutch a couple times with his frickin' dolphins on some YouTube videos. Yeah, his
dolphins were definitely his biggest iconic move he could have done. Easy Pants, he was just a Joe Average player in the sense of his melee style, and Theoden, the god of down spamming.
He's still like that today.
Yes, that's...
What was more of the, like, behind the scenes of the 71st?
I mean, we would just sit there and just make fun of everyone in the middle of a line battle. We would just crack jokes, usually. We wouldn't even talk about the line battle. We would just banter about the 2016 election, especially. During that time. But in 2014 to 2015, we just bantered about random things, really.
So what was it like being rising through the ranks of the 71st, since they were a more respectable regiment, and how was your melee evolving during that?
At the point when I joined the 71st, I was probably really one of the better players of North America, even though in many people's opinion, especially Alexander's from the 5th, felt as though I was probably one of the most underrated group fighters or players he's ever seen. And this was, and during this time period, 2015 to 2016, dueling in North America became a lot more, like, you were worshipped, basically, if you were good at dueling, not at group fighting. So the emphasis of group fighting wasn't really there, but I still believed it, and I was always on group fighting every single day. But going back to the point of rising through the 71st, I mean, it was basically the same as rising through the ranks in Odie's regiment, but I had a lot more reliable teammates, and I had a lot more fun while doing it.
Yeah. What? So the 71st, what were some, like, challenges that you guys faced?
In terms of enemy regiments we had to face, our biggest rival was the 50 AD, and then after that, the 3 Volt.
With Asian.
Those were our two biggest rivals throughout all time, even though we did beat the 50 AD most of the time.
What was it about the regiments that gave you guys trouble? Were they just melee stacked regiments, or?
They were, in all honesty, melee stacked regiments. Because especially the 50 AD, they started attracting all the trolls of NW. That basically. So
like the 45E.
Not exactly, but yeah,
they
had the RAF. They did have RAF and.
Did they?
Yeah, and Covey, and Bill, and all those players at one point of time. As well as the 3 Volt and 50 AD coalition, or the 91st during 2015. Which was the Super Regiment.
So when you're like, did you fight those guys in NWL? Like, can you talk about the NWL participation the 71st had?
season 3 is when the first season I joined under them, and we won that. And I do have a video. Go check out my channel, like, comment, subscribe.